Welcome to Pharma-Side Chats, where we interview newsmakers in the drug discovery and development community. I'm your host, Andrew S. Mich, editor of Drug Discovery and Development. MPI Research recently held the groundbreaking for a new imaging center at its headquarters in Mattawan, Michigan. The center is a collaboration between MPI Research, in vitro, and 3D imaging. The two-story, 10,000 square foot, multi-million-dollar facility is scheduled to open in the spring of 2014. Joining me to discuss this new imaging center is Scott Haller, the director of the new facility. Scott, how are you today?
Fine, thank you, Andrew.
I'm sure that you're very excited about the groundbreaking of this new facility. So what makes this center so unique in your opinion?
It's actually a multiple facet, I think, that makes this particular imaging center very unique and novel worldwide. The first and foremost aspect of the imaging center, as far as outside of the relationship to the actual facility, the physical facility itself, is the expertise of the three partners coming together, managing and operating the facility, as well as providing direction and expertise to the sponsors utilizing the facility. I think that's one of the first and foremost strengths of putting this together, quite honestly, is the expertise really maintained between the parties of each one of the partnerships. Secondly, and more specifically to the physical center itself, is the availability, a commercially available cyclotron that can produce both long and short-lived isotopes, which the criticality of that, or the importance of having the ability to have both short and long-lived isotopes, is it truly means in the hands of gifted and brilliant radiopharmaceutical chemists that essentially all drugs in development could potentially be labeled. There are obviously going to be some that could potentially cause some chemical issues and not allow themselves for labeling. But the vast majority of compounds under development should be allowed to be labeled with this production capability, as well as then matched to the availability with the immediately contiguous vivarium for both small and large animal models. This allows drug developers to have access to models for early stage development as well as late stage development in terms of translation between those models that are very, very unique and very specific and very similar, most importantly, to the human model.
So how exactly will this new facility speed up drug discovery and development for the pharmaceutical industry?
Access to molecular imaging, when it's incorporated properly in the hands of and under the guidance of experts that truly understand how to utilize molecular imaging, as well as, again, sophisticated radiochemistry, can significantly enhance the understanding of the mechanisms of action, as well as potential exposure and desired pharmaceutical effect of the target that's under development. There have been significant advances in our ability to interpret data that's generated from molecular imaging platforms, whether it's PET imaging or SPECT imaging or other, such that it no longer simply provides a pretty picture of potential exposure or distribution of the compound under investigation. If it's utilized properly and evaluated properly, it can truly tell you mechanisms of action, from binding affinity to potential exposure to dose symmetry evaluation and selection to other. And in the hands of and under the guidance of professionals that truly understand it, it can vastly enhance either decisions made for those being predictive of go, no-go decisions, or potentially even after you get into having selected your candidate, looking at slowing or basically decreasing or shortening your overall evaluation process of getting your therapeutic window selected or other therapeutic conditions of your particular compound under development selected much more rapidly and defined much more rapidly to fit to your indication.
And finally, why did MPI Research decide to collaborate with in vitro and 3D imaging on this center?
Well, that was actually probably the easiest selection and the easiest criteria out of this whole process to get the project, from concept to inception to reality at this particular point. The experts at In Vitro are world leaders in molecular imaging informatics, study design, as well as applicability of platform selection, and other that can really help to understand the sponsor's indication, their therapeutic target, and ultimately how to put together a platform and a profile and a program that will ultimately allow them to truly evaluate and understand the characteristics of their compound. And I mentioned this earlier related to how molecular imaging and radiochemistry can enhance drug development efforts. One of the more important criticalities, or the more critical components of this entire thing, is how the data is interpreted on the back end. Each one of these scans produce a significant amount of data. And if you don't understand how to truly evaluate the data, reconstruct the data, put it together into terms of compartmentalization, exposure, or other aspects that you truly have to have understanding and sophisticated mathematics, study design, engineering, and so on behind it, you can really lose a lot in translation. In Vitro truly understands that and provides that strength to the partnership. And 3D imaging, under the direction of Mark Barrage, they are world-renowned radiopharmaceutical chemists that can truly custom label, any compound under development. Their team is incredibly well versed in understanding the chemistry and the indication of compounds under development, and being able to develop a unique and custom radiosynthesis plan for ultimately labeling a compound while maintaining its intended pharmacology, which is critical. You don't necessarily want to change the chemical, physical, or biological properties of a compound under development just to tag it and identify how it's translocating through the body. That's where Mark's team and that team of 3DI play a critical role, as well as the partnership with MPI providing guidance of those aspects that would be commonly associated with a contract research organization. The strength of all three teams pulled together to really provide our sponsors with a collaborative, experienced professional team that can truly help guide drug development in a unique fashion, customized to their needs and their development plans.
Scott, thank you for joining us today. That's it for this episode, but you can find more Pharma-Side chats and continuous news coverage of the drug discovery and development industry at our website, dddmag.com.